Hello, and welcome to the Handsell with Ron Hogan and Allison Lynn. Allison is the author of The Exiles. It's a new novel from Little A, and I was really interested in this because it's set in my old hometown of Newport, Rhode Island, and I was really kind of interested in what attracted you to Newport as a setting in which to place your very Manhattan couple.
Right, I was going to say it's a very New York book. The couple at the center are very much New Yorkers, Manhattanites, and I needed a setting that would be close enough for them to drive there in a couple of hours. They're moving there, they have all of their goods in their Jeep, but not so close like Philadelphia that you might turn around and come right back. And I originally had trouble finding a setting that would fit in those parameters, that would also be somewhere that someone who works in finance might move. And then an acquaintance who's from Newport heard I was having this issue and said, what about Newport? And to me, it's a summer town, but he explained to me the duality of a place like Newport, where we do have the very wealthy summer crowd, the yacht owners and all that, but there's also the year-round crowd, which is much more economically diverse and really diverse in terms of their careers, their backgrounds, and that interested me a lot.
And it also sounds like you spent a good deal of time there once you settled on it. For example, it sounds like you took the Elm store a couple of times.
I did. Maybe the reason I chose Newport also is that it's such a great place to go and do research. So I toured the Elms a couple of times. I spent a lot of time in the Viking Hotel lobby. It's the hotel where a lot of the book takes place. So I learned quite a bit.
Well, I can vouch for the verisimilitude of the book. I think it gets Newport and some of the areas there quite well. And so I encourage you to check that out. Now, the way that the Handsell works is that people send me lists of books that they've read and enjoyed, and then I come to a place like powerHouse Arena here in DUMBO, Brooklyn, and I recruit a bookseller or an author like Allison, and we go over that list and see what we can come up with as a recommendation. I have a list that came anonymously from Tumblr, and it includes 5 titles. Up Jumps the Devil by Michael Poole, Chris Cleave's Gold, Louise Erdrich's National Book Award-winning Roundhouse, Mark Haddon's Red House, and the 5th book on the list is Zadie Smith's N.W. I'm curious to see what you made of that list and what you thought might go well with it.
It took me a minute, or longer than a minute, to find the real commonalities on this list. And the 2 things I settled on are we have 3 books by Brits, and also 4 of the books, not Up Jumps the Devil, but the other 4, really don't center on a single character, but center on a number of characters. In the case of the Zadie Smith book, it's a bunch of characters who come from the same place and then follow into the future. In the Mark Haddon book, which is a classic British country house book, it's family converging on one place. Louise Erdrich has a central character. She has Joe, who's the boy in the book, but it's really the story of the community as a whole. And then Chris Cleave's Gold has 2 main characters who are both fighting for the same championship or title in competitive bike racing. So I came up with a book that I really love, and it's Andrew Miller's Oxygen. And I have Andrew Miller on my mind right now because I just finished Pure, which is his most recent book, and is really excellent. But Oxygen is how I got to know him. It came out, it was up for the Booker in 2001, and that's when I read it, but I still think of it all the time. And the cog in the wheel of the characters in that book is Alice Valentine, who is a woman who lives in the countryside in Britain and is dying of cancer. And her 2 sons come home. One is was once a tennis star, who won the French Open, goes to be a soap star in Hollywood, and then fails and falls so far that at the time the book's taking place, he's desperately trying to land a role in a Spanish porn film. So he comes home as a failure. The other son also feels like a failure, lives in London, and is translating a new play by a Hungarian playwright, and sees this as his last chance at glory. And the final character we follow in this book is the playwright himself. And it ends up being largely a tale of the ways we feel responsible for the ones we love. And that also relates to the Louise Erdrich book. And then I was trying to figure out also the ways we fail the ones we love in that responsibility. And I was thinking about Up Jumps the Devil, the one book I don't know on this list. And the more I looked into it, it seems to be a book that's very funny and skewers America to some degree. And that's something Andrew Miller does in Oxygen as well. It's at times an intense book, a very moving book. The language has so much energy and is really another central asset to the book. And when he's talking about that, especially the son who's failed in Hollywood, he has a lot of fun at the expense of, and some laugh-out-loud jokes at the expense of America. So I can't imagine that whoever Anonymous is won't like, and I hope love Oxygen, given the list of books I've seen.
Now, I know that as you were thinking about this list and coming up with the recommendation, you told me that you actually shared it with your husband, Michael Dahlie,
Yes.
who is also a novelist and recently wrote The Best of Youth. And it turns out Michael is actually here with us. You know about these books as well. I was interested to hear a little bit about what you came up with as a reading recommendation.
Well, I actually myself have appeared in several Spanish porn movies, and this is how I met Allison at first. So I was very interested in this list, but Up Jumps the Devil, maybe not surprisingly, was what I gravitated towards, and it made me think of a book that I just finished by Anna Gear. It's a biography of John Milton, and I love Paradise Lost. I think it's a really thrilling read, and it's really interesting to read it in the context it's inspired, because there was a great sort of, well, there still is a great debate on how John Milton felt about the devil. And I think when you read it, there's no question that he has an enormous amount of compassion for the devil. And I think that this really comes through in Anna Gear's biography, especially because Milton was such a troublemaker and rabble-rouser and provocateur and a devilish kind of guy himself. So that would be my recommendation.
That's another really great recommendation. And to that, I'm going to add a book that I read and reviewed recently. It's called The Quarry. It's the last novel by Ian Banks. And it's a really interesting novel narrated by a 18-year-old young man who, it's never made explicit exactly where on the Asperger spectrum he is, but it's very clear in the way that his character plays out, and he does sort of drop hints along the way. And so he is basically sort of our camera eye on the situation in which his father's college friends are coming back to visit him because the father is dying of cancer at this time. And there are some bits of unfinished business circling back to their college days that need settling. And in some ways, it's kind of like The Big Chill, only that the body is still alive. But it's got a very dark sort of sense of humor about it. And although there are some elements that, you might call them blind alleys or misdirections or red herrings, I think it's because this is ultimately much more of a character study than it is sort of like a story based on sequential events happening. And as a character study, I think it's really fabulous. It's maybe not the first book that I would recommend to somebody as a perfect example of what Ian Banks could do, but I think it's an excellent entry point for somebody who has never read his mainstream work before. And then from there you can go on to the rest of the stuff he published as Ian Banks, and onward even perhaps to the science fiction he published as Ian M. Banks. So between that recommendation and the Milton biography and the Andrew Miller novel, I think Anonymous and maybe some of you will have some reading to do as well. Now, if you would like a recommendation of your own, it's really easy to get one. You just go to thehandsell.com/ask, and there's a box where you can type in, let's say 3, 4, maybe 5 books that you've read and enjoyed. And when I get that list and I get a chance, I can come to an independent bookstore like DUMBO's Powerhouse Arena and talk to an author or a bookseller and see what we can come up with that meshes well with the books on your list. So again, from Powerhouse Arena here in Dumbo, I've been talking to Michael Dahlie and Allison Lynn, and you have been watching The Handsell. Thank you very much.